Someone says Tom Gumbleton?
Of a very fine person who's very dedicated. It's the first thing that comes to my mind with Tom Gumbleton. He's for real. He's a man who's really for real.
How long have you known Tom?
For years. Focus Hope is going into our we're in our 39th year, and I've known Tom all that time and little time before that. So it's been a while.
And how did you guys meet?
Well, probably Father Cunningham and Tom Gumbleton had the same passion. It was for civil rights and human rights and how do you make the world a better place. And they were both seminarians at the same time. So I had an opportunity to meet with them then. And it's just been a wonderful experience.
Now, I wasn't sure how old Father Cunningham was in relationship to Tom. Were they were contemporaries?
About the same age, yes. Yeah, Tom is 76, right? Yeah, that would be Father's age too.
Okay. You, Tom, and Father Cunningham work for social justice. Why do you do that? Or what was
You know how they say you have a defining moment in your life? I can certainly tell you when exactly mine was, and it was watching the Nuremberg trials on television, and I was appalled at what I was seeing, but the program was interrupted by the March on Mississippi, and I watched as policemen were riding through giving electric shocks with cattle prodders, turning dogs loose. I sat there and cried my eyes out, and I kept saying, what would I have done if I would have lived in Nazi Germany during that time? Would I have pretended I didn't see anything? Would I have become involved? And what am I doing about what's going on in my country? Changed me immediately. Became a strong supporter of Dr. King, and when the riots hit here in 1967, Father Cunningham and I walked the streets the day after the riots, and tanks were going up and down and the helicopters flying over, and we kept saying, we have got to do something. And I mean, that instilled a passion in me that I still got the fire in my belly today. I mean, it's just, I can close my eyes and see the same scene. And, I remember so many conversations. I can remember conversations between Tom Gumbleton and Bill Cunningham about what's going on and how can we change it and how can we work together. And it's been an adventure that I thank God for every day.
Yeah, that kind of leads to something I was going to go. That defining moment, just to continue on this, because my next question was, were you always like this? But I think you've kind of covered that. But at that time, it was the 60s. There was the Vietnam War, and for Tom and for Father Cunningham, it was Vatican II. And the civil rights. There's a lot of things going on. What was there one particular thing that put you guys all on the path that you're on?
I think just the way that the black people in this city were being treated. And I think that that certainly was something that was a defining moment for me. And all over the United States, there was just riots and so much. It was painful. It was just painful in the war, and I don't even know how to describe it anymore. It was, you just knew that God was tapping you on the shoulder and say, you better do something about this right now. And I know Tom took on the war, and he's been just very, very vocal about that all of his life. He and Cunningham had the same passion. It was a passion for people. It was a passion to serve God. It was a passion to make the world a better place, particularly for those that were disadvantaged. And that's something that, when we started Focus Hope, for example, the first thing that we did was understand that malnutrition was a reality. And we started a food program for pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children, because that was a passion, and it was a need and something that needed to be done. And it's the same thing that Tom has had, that passion, and we're going to do something about it. I can tell you this story, but you tell me when you want me to stop.
Why don't you tell me the story right now?
Okay, we started the food program. struggling with the food program. And that food program last month provided food to 43,000 mothers, children, and senior citizens. 43,000 in 1 month. So then all of a sudden we saw that industry was moving out of the city, and we thought, where's everybody going? Because what our goal was is to see that we could get people off of food program and get them into the financial mainstream. So we bought Accelo Corporation and started the Machinist Training Institute. And we were very successful at that. And then the Ford Industrial Engine Plant right down the street went out, and we bought that. And we said, we're going to go even further into the future, and we're going to train engineers, young men and women that will exceed industry's expectation, because our passion was to get them off of food program into the mainstream. And we bought the building. It was the ugliest thing you ever saw in your life. Father and I had to carry umbrellas because the pigeons were flying and the rain was dripping, but we did it. And we said, okay, we're going to create an engineer. So it took us 9 years, and we got a memorandum of understanding signed by the Secretaries of Education, Labor, Commerce, and Defense. And they all said, you know, your vision is good, Father, go ahead and do this. But then we had to get the money. Now, where do you get the money for all of this? And we got money from Education, Labor, Commerce. Now here comes when Defense. When we got the money from Defense, what we were doing, we were using the defense money to purchase equipment that was going down in our plant floors. And that's when Tom Gumbleton came to see Father, because it was everywhere that we were working with the Defense Department or trying to get money, but the purpose was to get money in here so that we could get the equipment in here from the Defense Department and train young men and women. I got a call one day from Tom, and he said, I want to come over and see Bill. We need to have a little conversation. So he came over the next morning. I stopped and bought the donuts, and they both went in my conference room over on the other side of the building that we were in, and Gumbleton was really going after Bill. And the bottom line was, he said, Bill, you're going after tainted money. And Bill said, Tom, it tainted money, it tain't enough money. You know, that was their philosophy. Gump was saying it's tainted, and Bill was saying, tain't enough, I need more money. But, you know, they stayed in the room for about 2 hours and hashed it out, and they came out, and he understood where Father Cunningham was coming from, and Father always understood where Tom was coming from too. So I had to lock the door, stood in front of it, and I say, you guys aren't coming out until you shake hands.
Yeah, I bet so, you know.
Yeah.
I could see donuts, a little bit of scotch in their coffee, and they'd be happy, you know, right?
That's so, right.
But, you know, that's a good point. You know, your mission versus Tom's mission, really, are they the same or different, or how, you know?
No, I think they're the same. But again, you know, Tom is so strong about people and the rights of people and the rights of people in countries. I mean, we've had several conferences over here when Tom was here, and there was the one nun, I can't remember her name right now, who was so badly abused in another country, and he was here, and that was his passion, to let people know about the horrific things were taking place all over the world. That was his, and still is, his passion. And I think that we were more tuned into what was going on right around us and right here, but it was still people. And how do we make the world a better place?
And that is kind of the defining thing. You guys, you know, are that truly that thing of, you know, think globally but act locally type
right.
of thing. You know, you're trying to help people here, you're trying to, you know, and ultimately, you know, change the world that way. And I think that's how Tom feels about it. You know, because one of the questions I was asking people during the other interviews was, you know, can one person really make a difference? You know, and I guess I want to ask you that. You know, can somebody like Tom, or, you know, like Father Cunningham and yourself, Can you make a difference? One person?
I think one person can make a difference, absolutely. You may only be touching 1 or 2 lives. You don't know how many lives you're going to touch. And, you know, if you ever told me that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I'd tell them, you know, you're off the wall, Tony. But you can make a difference. And if you think of Tom Gumbleton, you think of all the changes he's made in the world, and you think of all the people that he's helped. And just, you know, he's rattled a lot of cages, and I give him tremendous credit for that. I respect the man, and, you know, he is truly a spiritual man who wants to serve God, and he does it, and he uses all of his talent. And, you know, God taps him on the shoulder one way, and he taps Cunningham another way. Who knows? But you're there, you answered the call, and that's what they've both done.
You know, it seems that the Archdiocese wishes Tom would go away sometimes, you know, that he's, well, you know how it is.
Yes.
How do you see it?
Yeah, sure, because he's controversial. And who wants that? You want the world, everything to be nice and smooth. You don't want anybody to rattle the cages. I think, excuse me, but I think the Archdiocese is very, very wrong on the way that they treat Bishop Gumbleton. I think he is a remarkable man that's done everything right in his life, and he ought to be held up as a saint, in my judgment.
And I can feel your conviction when you say that.
I mean it too.
Oh, and there's other people who have said the same thing. You know that they've described Tom as a prophet. You know, he's speaking out against things. You know, kind of like Jesus
Sure.
did, you know, and saying things. How would you describe? I mean, just to reemphasize that what you just said. You know, how would you describe Tom?
As a man with a strong passion, with a man who truly, truly is a spiritual man who wants to serve God, and he is not afraid to take a risk. And that's what I love about him. He'll stand up. He's not afraid to stand anybody to their face and tell them what he believes in. And that's why I have so much respect for him. He stands there because he believes in it, and he's going to speak out, and he doesn't care who loves him and who doesn't love him. I've watched Father Cunningham get thrown out of 2 churches when we started because he was talking about civil rights. And they both believed in it. They stand for it, and God love him. He's still doing his thing today.
And you are too, thankfully. I mean,
Thank you.
Well, you know, that covers most of the questions I wanted to ask about Tom, I guess. Now, there's a couple things I might just throw in there that if you can work it in, you know, you talked about Tom and Father Bill being contemporaries. Mm-hmm. You know, unfortunately, these guys, you know, Ken Utner, all these guys that affects Tom. You know, he sees, you know, I know Ken Utner was a very close friend of his. I know Bill Cunningham.
Right.
And, you know, Tom's a private man for all the public.
Oh, I know it.
You know, and I wonder how that affects him. But, you know, the other thing I wonder, too, is, you know, does he think, or do you guys think, who's going to take their place? I mean, who's coming up next to do this work?
I don't know. I truly do not know. I think there are a lot of goodwill people out there, but I think the diocese is in trouble. We're losing priests right and left. And I don't see a whole lot of them who are willing to stand up. Certainly I see some of them. I can name a half a dozen that I know that are willing to stand up there. But I think this is an entirely different time. And we're just going down different paths. I do hope that Tom Gumbleton continues to educate a lot of the young men and women that are in the diocese right now, that are becoming deacons, becoming priests. I hope that he plays a role in that and helps young men and women around. I hope he continues to go out and give talks everywhere he can and talk about the mission, because he's talking about what God's plan is, and he's not afraid to talk about it. But he needs to help other young men and women coming behind him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see, you know, these new priests coming out, the few coming out.
Few.
You know, they're more technicians or bureaucrats.
Right.
They're not the fire of Father Bill or Tom.
No.
you know, and as somebody said on the thing, you know, if Tom had played his cards right, he could probably be at Hugo the Hills golfing on the, you know.
Right.
But
That's not who he is.
That's not who he is.
No.
Can you just give me that sense of who Tom is? What does Tom believe, and what, you know, why would he not be happy golfing? Why does he do what, you know?
Tom is not a man that's going to go out and waste his time playing golf. He's got a limited amount of time on this earth, and he wants to go for it, and he wants to make a difference. And so he's always driven by that passion. He's not a real, somebody who's outspoken, who wants to go shake the hands with everybody and smooth and talk all that. That's not him. He wants to rattle the cage, and that's what he does constantly, but he rattles it in a way that people, you either love him or you're intimidated by him. Well, me, I love him, okay? And I'm so thankful that he's got the courage to stand up and the passion to continue to do what he's done all of his life. And we should be thanking him, and we should be holding him up, right? Sainthood.
I think we're done here.
We're done?
Is there another story about Tom and Father Cunningham?
No, that's the main one that I wanted to tell you.
Oh, I love it
Yeah.
too. I'm trying to think,
Tain't enough.
you know, and I
Tainted money.
I think there's got to be, you know, I might need a way to shorten up the beginning part
Yeah, you
of it.
can do anything you want.
So maybe I might just have you retell it, but just condense the, you know, when we first started, we needed the seed money, and, you know, because I can take the back end of it if you kind of shorten, because I want to tell
Shorten
the focus
okay.
hope part of it. I don't want to eliminate that, but the whole thing is kind of,
Okay, so what do you want
so
the,
I guess,
you know,
you know, if you can, you know, the basic gist of it sounds to me like, you know, we needed money to get Focus Hope going. Part of it was going to come from the government. That,
Okay.
you know, and then May connects that with the Tom, you know, or the defense money.
you know, is when Focus Hope, when we first got started, our passion has always been to see that people could get into the financial mainstream. So we bought a lot of the plants as industry was moving out and started training programs, but we had to put equipment in here, we had to get money to finance them, and that's when we went to Education, Labor, Commerce, and the Defense Department. We went to the Defense Department because they had the biggest budget, number one, and because they had a lot of equipment that we needed in our training programs. So that's when Gumbleton, everybody, it was no secret that Father Cunningham was going to the Defense Department, and that's when Tom called one day and said, I have got to come and have a conversation with Bill. And Bill knew exactly why he was coming, so that's when I said, okay. So I stopped and got the donuts that morning, and they both went in the room, and the bottom line was, Tom said, Bill, you're dealing with tainted money. And Bill said, Tom, it's tain't enough money. That's what he needed, tain't enough money. So we've used that a long time ago. We all laugh about it, but it's true. You know, that's one, he was thinking one way and the bishop was thinking another way, but they both came together, and it was wonderful.
All right, see that's perfect. I can use some of the old stuff, and this one is perfect how you condensed it down. It's perfect. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to say about Tom, or that your thoughts, or anything that, you know, what's going on now? I mean, this whole thing with him having been kind of forced out of St. Leo's and stuff, but, you know, I'm trying to focus on the more positive aspects of everything.
That's why you don't ask me. I think that what they have done to him is wrong, wrong, wrong. I think that's shameful.
And you're not alone. I mean, there's, you know, it is very frustrating that here's a guy, you know.
He's done everything right in his life. He's dedicated his whole life to the service of God, and to the service of this diocese. And now you tell him, you're out? That's not right.